Hello everybody, I am Baltmatrix, and today we are taking a look at Transformers Deluxe Class Hotshot from Transformers Legacy Evolution, the toy line. This figure was purchased at, you know what, I don't remember. I think I got this on Amazon. I honestly don't remember, but it is available at the Hasbro Pulse. This version of Hotshot is probably the best looking one. Those other two figures that we've seen, the Universe figure and the original figure, definitely didn't do the design justice. This one, I think it does do the design a little bit of justice. But there are a couple of weird oddities with this figure, but we'll get into that. For now, to start off with, I gotta say, love the head sculpt. I legitimately love this head sculpt. I don't think we've ever gotten a Hotshot as good as this head sculpt-wise. My visor folds down, and unlike a lot of folks, mine doesn't have the floppiness to it yet. I'm sure that will happen at some point. This figure also has something that original Universe figure did not have, and that is missile action. Unfortunately, every time I try to move that, it unpegs the shoulders. So, yeah, just be wary of that. Now, I can't argue with that. I really can't. I don't remember that many times when he used it in the show, but it's here. And what's really cool is we've got this little mushroom peg look on the other one side, and then you could just turn it around, and you can actually fit a missile in there. Like the original hot missile that came with Hotshot. That fits in here. The other thing that's cool is this is just on a mushroom peg. So you could pull this off, and then attach it to the gun. And then he can dual-wield two cannons at once. That peg hole also fits blast effects, and swords, and other toys. So yeah, it's rather versatile. That cannon on top. I kind of like it. I do have to give Hasbro credit. The paint on this figure is pretty darn good. That chest also being the silver paint, that works well. However, on mine, it's already rubbing off, which is really weird. It's not going to show up on camera, but it is actually rubbing off already, which is a shame. The paint on the gun is really good, and it's super thick. The gun itself is molded in pure red plastic and then painted. The sides are painted silver and the middle is painted black. That paint is on there thick, because the only way I figured that out was turning it over and then seeing that there was a little bit of red peeking in on the inside. Hotshot's posability is okay. Head is on a swivel that moves side to side. It feels like there's a ball joint in there, but his helmet is just too darn big for it to actually do anything. Shoulders are on swivels and hinges, bicep swivel, bend at the elbow 90 degrees, no fist articulation, torso articulation, legs kick forward and back and out at 90-degree angles. There's a thigh swivel right there. Bend at the knee is problematic because, as you can see, it hits car bits. And then the foot. Well, the foot. Where do I begin? Okay, so it's got some motion up and down for the transformation, and then the ankles do rock, but good God, the first time I moved this, I thought I broke the figure, because there was a horrible snapping sound the first time I bent the ankles, and it was disturbing, let's say. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the legs. I mean, look at this. This is just bonkers. I get why it's like this. There was really no way for Hasbro to cover up the whole inside section at this price point, and I really wish that the roof of the car folded and then came over somehow. That would be nice, but it doesn't. I suspect someone like Don Neff or DNA Designs is going to create a new part that would do that. Also, the windscreen or the front windshield gets in the way of the legs, as you saw. So in order to bend the legs all the way down, you have to flip the roof out of the way, so then you can bend the legs in. That's really stupid, but at the same point, this is Hotshot we're talking about, so he's got to fail in some respect. Size comparison time. Evil Optimus, Tank Jet Boy, Lion Optimus, Kitty, Needlenose and his boys, Unhappy Skullman, Lady, Other Lady, 80s Minivan, Angry Murderous Tank Guy, and Gunboy. So yeah, Hotshot is perfectly scaled to everybody else currently. Let's get into Hotshot's transformation because it's kind of cool. First off, come to the shoulders and push them up and actually unpeg them intentionally this time, as opposed to unintentionally every time. Then those shoulder bits will rock forward and then fold back to form the back of the car mode and the spoiler, and then those whole thing will flip up and over his shoulders. But first, come to the chest, open up the chest, roll his head in there, and close it up. Make sure that the slots here on the top of the, axle cannon are actually pointing towards the inside of the spoiler, because if you don't, then you can't transform it correctly. So these fit over that part. Now, coming down to the rest of the figure, turn the hands so that the fists are kind of pointing down, so that the open and closed section of the fists are pointing to the sides of the hips. Come down to the legs, fold those toes up. Once we got the toes folded up, turn the legs around 180 degrees, and then turn the bottom legs so that they are pointing like this, and then we can flip up the, windscreen and, this whole top of the canopy, and flip it around, and then it'll do the Combiner Wars thing, where it unpegs at the knee, and then folds up into place. Doesn't really snap into place. Oh, hello, kitty. And then you just got to get everything lined up here. The last bits of the transformation are mildly tricky, more annoying than tricky, and it's all just getting these panels lined up correctly. One thing I do want to make note of is this peg down here at the very front of the bumper. It's better to, instead of pulling it and pushing it apart, it's better to slide it up and down as opposed to, pulling it apart. It just makes things easier. But what we end up with is a pretty darn good rendition of that original Hot Rod or Hot Shot figure. Unfortunately, I do not possess a Minicon that could plug in back here, but the original Jolt and even the Universe Jolt can peg into this Minicon port. And by Minicon port, I mean the 3.5 millimeter port. There, that works, doesn't it? Maybe? Like that original Hot Shot before him, his little blaster can peg in and become an engine gun, and honestly, I really do think this figure looks better with the engine gun as opposed to without it. One place where Hasbro continues to have trouble is paint matching. For the most part, the yellow on this figure is pretty okay. There are, in different lights, it looks weird, but once you've got it under all light, the paint for the body is okay, except for the top and the very top of the hood. I don't know what it is about yellow plastic that makes things so difficult to paint match. But the thinner the plastic is, I have found, the worse the paint matching is. So let's remove the engine, which once in there is actually kind of hard to remove. Where these little pegs are, I find that it's a little bit darker, and it's not showing up on camera, but where the pegs are is just a smidge darker than the rest of the yellow. And then, I don't know what's even going on here. Are they even using the same paint? It doesn't look like it, but I think this would be fixed if they primed these little sections first with maybe a light gray primer or a white primer, and then put the yellow paint on, as opposed to just slapping it on the clear plastic. And yes, the entire canopy section here is clear plastic. That is unfortunate, but it doesn't feel that fragile, thankfully. Vehicle size comparison time. Legacy Skids. Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Wheeljack. Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Ironhide. An 80s minivan. A superior yellow sports car. Astro Train's Tinderbox. A futuristic dinosaur sports car. A velociraptor. A really big spider. And an attack helicopter. Transforming Hotshot back into robot mode isn't hard. It's not. Things do get in the way, but everything pops apart pretty well. It's just a shame that there's nothing to peg these back parts into. It feels like they are meant to peg in somewhere, but they just kind of rest there. The backpack itself is supposed to peg in, and even when you have it in, it just kind of sits there loosely. And then the shoulders. The shoulder pads do peg in, but they unpeg so freakishly easily. It's just frustrating. Another oddity with the figure is that it looks like there are two holes for a peg stand on either side of the hip, but the holes are too big. They're just too dang big. Weird. This Hotshot figure isn't awful by any stretch of the imaginations. Yes, it has problems. No, it's not perfect. But it isn't great either. It's got enough flaws and enough odd decisions that make it not worth recommending. So I can't recommend it unless you absolutely have to have a Hotshot in your life, or at least another one. There have been only 3. He's not bad enough to hit with a hammer, but he's not good enough to even stand with some of the better figures. He's middling at best, just like he was in the show. Alright folks, that's my review of Transformers Legacy Evolution Hotshot. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you all for watching. I have been Baltmatrix, and I will catch you all next time.